Hello everyone! Welcome to today's B2 grammar lesson with Teacher Lau. Today we'll review comparisons. But what are comparisons? Pause the video for a moment and try to come up with your own answer. If you thought something like the differences in amount, number, degree, or quality found between two or more things or people, then you would be right. Well done! So, to express those differences, we use adjectives or adverbs in the form of comparatives. Emma is more enthusiastic than Olivia. Or in the form of superlatives, which is when we want to say that the person or thing has more of that quality than anything or everyone else, or less. So we can say, Emma is the most enthusiastic person I've ever met, or Olivia is the least enthusiastic person I've ever met. The first thing to consider is the word length. One-syllable adjectives add er to the comparative and est to the superlative form. Young, younger, youngest. When an adjective ends in e, we only add r to the comparative or st to the superlative. Nice, nicer, nicest. If an adjective ends in a single vowel and a consonant but not w, we double the final consonant. Big, bigger, biggest. Other examples like this are fat, hot, sad, slim, thin, wet. When the adjective ends in y, we change the y to an I and add er or est to the superlative. Happy, happier, happiest. Other examples are angry, busy, dirty, easy, funny, heavy, silly, tiny. Most two-syllable or longer adjectives are formed with more for the comparative and the most for the superlative form. Careful, more careful, less careful. The most careful, the least careful. Important, more important, less important. The most important, the least important. Outrageous, more outrageous, less outrageous. The most outrageous, the least outrageous. Some two-syllable adjectives may have both forms, like simple, simpler, the simplest. More simple, less simple. The most simple, the least simple. Other examples are clever, common, cruel, gentle, likely, narrow, pleasant, polite, quiet. No matter the length of the adjective, there is no suffix to express less or the least. So we would say less big, the least big. Although the opposite is more commonly used to express the same. Smaller, the smallest. It sounds more natural, don't you think? Finally, there are also irregular adjectives such as good, bad, far, old. So we can have good, better, the best. Bad, worse, the worst. Far, farther, further. The farthest, the furthest. Old, older, elder. The oldest, the eldest. Note that further means both more far and just more. So if I say, how much further do we have to walk? I mean more far. Let's discuss this further. Let's discuss this more. As you can see, old has a regular form, older, and an irregular form, elder, which is used to describe people, especially family members. Daisy is my elder sister. We can also use adverbs to make comparisons, and they follow the same rules as adjectives, adding more in the comparative form, like in commonly, more commonly, readily, more readily. And the most in the superlative, so we have commonly, the most commonly, readily, the most readily. And of course, there can also be single word adverbs, in which case we add er to the comparative form and the est to the superlative. For example, close, closer, the closest. Early, earlier, the earliest. Fast, faster, the fastest. Hard, harder, the hardest. Near, nearer, the nearest. And we can also find some irregular forms like badly and well, which are badly, worse, the worst, well, better, the best. Now that we know how words function, let's make comparisons. The simplest type uses than. So for example, George is more casual than John. Your room is brighter than mine. We can also repeat comparatives to suggest change. For example, Paul is getting better and better at football. Amanda is becoming more and more successful. We can also use a construction that repeats the word the. The more carefully you drive, the safer you are. There are also some expressions with the word best. For example, may the best player win. Here, we might be talking about 2 or more people. This is the best I can do to help. The lawyer tried her best. If we use an adverb of degree before a comparative, it makes it stronger. A good deal, a great deal, a lot, much, far. For example, Anna is much more intelligent than the rest of her class. Or you can make it weaker, a bit, a little, rather, slightly. For example, this t-shirt is a bit more expensive than the others because it is from the new collection. There are also adverbs of degree that can be used before a superlative adjective, such as by far, easily, much, quite. Mary is easily the most caring person I know. There are also comparative clauses, for example, with than. This restaurant is more expensive than I thought. With not as, or not so as. We use this structure to compare two things or people. Not so as is less common than not as. For example, we can say, Adam is not as tall as his brother. Careful not to use the comparative form here. For example, Adam is not as taller as his brother. That would be absolutely wrong, so no. Studying history is not as fun as dancing. Oh, of course not! With just as. For example, snowboarding can be just as exciting as kite surfing. With such as, for example, I've never heard such a beautiful song as this one. With a superlative adjective and present perfect simple, often with ever. For example, this is the fastest car I've ever driven. With an auxiliary. When we compare actions, we can use an auxiliary at the end of the sentence. Modals like can are repeated, so we can say, I can play tennis a lot better than Serena. Or, I can play tennis a lot better than Serena can. While other verbs use the form of do. So you can say, you paid much more for your dress than me. Or, you paid much more for your dress than I did. We can also use more and most to describe quantity. So, we use more and most as comparative or superlative of many or much. For example, most people love learning languages. Who wouldn't? I finally have got more time to read. Yay! And remember, check spelling rules for comparative and superlative adjectives. Remember, one-syllable adjectives ending in one consonant, they must double the final consonant, like in big, bigger, the biggest. Also, one or two-syllable adjectives ending in Y, they change the Y to I. Happy, happier, the happiest. Remember that also adverbs can form comparatives and superlatives, like in fast, faster, the fastest. And finally, remember that auxiliaries are often used at the end of a comparative clause to avoid repeating the verb. So, for example, we can say, Marla works twice as hard as Susan does, and not as Susan works. Great! So that's everything for this lesson. I hope it was useful for you. Now go and practice and contact me back with any comments or questions, either on the comment section below or in class. If you like this video, remember to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for the next grammar topic. Thank you very much for following this lesson, and I'll see you again soon. Bye!